Namaste, nerds. This is Navanad, the Budget Pub Stomper, with the second part of the Crick Son of Yawgmoth sub $100 budget competitive deck tech. Today we're going to do starting hands, mulligans, and just the second half of the video primer. I'm bringing you Phyrexian Force Choke Budget Edition Part 2. There were some questions in the comments about the specific Asmodeus, Scourge Familiar, Necrotic Ooze line. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit of, well, like where normally I go through and just goldfish the hands and whatever happens, happens, and I play them sort of the way I would play them in a real game. I'm going to be moving more towards the Fleshwrither line. Fleshwrither in this deck is a one-card win condition. So we've got other win lines, but I think if you get this Fleshwrither line, if you get your head around it, the rest of it's just going to kind of fall into place. So I think I want to kind of pay special attention to that. So we're not just going to go for exactly the best play we could make at every moment. I want to make sure that I give anyone watching this, thinking about building it, I want to give you the ability to go for this one combo. So you've got like one line that you can go for when you're playing, so that you can win some games and get some experience and just kind of know what you're trying to accomplish. And then I think that the rest of the lines are just going to show up just during the course of playing the deck out. I mean, it's layered, it's synergistic, there's really weird, I don't know, pieces that you're not used to, but you're going to figure those out. You will figure them out. But I think you just have to have this one Fleshwrither line pretty well down. And I want to say, I ended up taking out the Ebony Charm. I don't think we need two cards to recycle with the infinite mana or virtually infinite mana Scourge Familiar Asmodeus thing. And somebody asked me specifically about that, like where do we get the mana to continually cast the Ebony Charm or the Tendrils of Agony over and over again, and I want to show how that works. It's just basically using Elixir of Immortality to recycle your deck, and then you just keep running through it again. But let's just see if we can get into a situation where that comes up. What did I take? I took out the Ebony Charm, and I replaced it with just another removal piece. So this is just black, which is good because you can fully pay for it with Crick. And here, this spell is going to gain us some life back. So I think I wouldn't actually mind seeing this in budgetless decks. Well, a lot of the budgetless decks, like the full power CDH Crick decks, are not running, 32 swamps. And you will notice that my land count is really high. This is maybe the most lands that I've ever put in a budget competitive deck, but you need it. Like this deck is hungry for hitting its land drops. You really want to hit your land drops in this list. Without further ado. Oh, and I want to say too, I feel like you could maybe cut a removal piece to add in another 2-mana rock, or I think you could cut a removal piece or an interaction piece in order to get another creature or two. The deck really does want to have creatures in play, and it wants to get to that 4th mana. Okay. Alright, so let's see. What do we have here? This is a good... I mean, it's not good to have 4 lands in your opener, but this is a pretty... We've got the things we need. We've got interaction, we've got a tutor, and we've got ramp. Let's keep this and see where it takes us. That was not... We don't want to draw our combo pieces, but you're playing a lot of combo pieces. It's going to happen. Next turn. Boy. Alright, we definitely have our swamps. Lots of mana. Lots and lots of mana. So now here, we'd have kind of a decision to make. We could play Crick out. We could play we could transmute Dimir Houseguard. We could I think let's just take this nice and slow and just make sure we get all of our steps right and that it's not too complicated, and then when I go through the lines that it makes sense. So let's just establish our mana. We'll say we had to kill a thing. It's an uncounterable removal piece, so we just killed a thing for sure. And we'll just go to our turn 4 and we'll run out Crick. And we will transmute Dimir Houseguard. Well, this actually is going to work out really nice. So we're going to transmute Dimir Houseguard into our 1-card win condition, Fleshwrither. So we're taking it slow, we're taking it easy, but we're going to just make sure that that I show you the steps in a way that's going to make sense to you. Go to next turn. Boy, a couple of creatures would have been a lot better, or like some tutors, or really anything aside from lands. Would we just go for it here? Well, I think I can go for it at least enough to show you how the combo works. So let's just do this. We're going to go, we're going to have to pay for the 2 black. We're going to have to pay the 2 colorless. And we can pay for the 2 black with Crick's ability, losing 4 life. So we lose 4 life, he gets a counter. Remember, he gets a counter every time you cast a black spell. And he has lifelink. So if you start running out of life, you can use Tendrils of Agony as a big ol' ritual, and or you can swing with Crick and he's got lifelink. But what we're going to do now, this is the engine of the deck. This is the thing you need to know to understand how the deck works. This will let you play Crick. We are going to now transfigure Fleshwrither. We can use Crick's ability to pay for the 2 black pips, but we have to pay for the colorless, and the transfigure cost with actual mana. So I just tapped a mana to transfigure this. Transfigure is kind of like transmute, but instead of it going to hand, it's going to just search and find a creature and put it into play. It's got to be a 4 mana value creature, and the 4 mana value creature is going to be Necrotic Ooze. If you play this deck, you're gonna learn to love this little guy. Okay, now this is the part where you need to think. Like, put on your thinking cap for this part. Kind of pay attention. This is going to be a little bit. It's not going to be obvious. It's going to seem a little strange. Okay, so Necrotic Ooze has all of the abilities of all creatures in all graveyards. That means that it has Transfigure. And so we are going to pay a black to transfigure the Necrotic Ooze. So we are going to search our library for a creature card that's 4 mana and put it into play. But we're going to have to sacrifice Necrotic Ooze to do that. Now this little line is why it really does help to have some little dorky creatures that you can throw away to this combo. Otherwise we might have to do it in multiple turns. But let's pay attention. Let's stay on track. We've got Necrotic Ooze getting transfigured into what? Into the $12 card in our $100 deck that most of you have never heard of. We're going to transfigure it into Belthor the Defiled. Okay. Now Belthor has an ability for black. We can exile it, and we can return all black or red creatures from our graveyard into the battlefield. Also, it gives all minions +1/+1. So we got a +1 counter for casting it. Did I cast anything else? I feel like I certainly did. I did a Necrotic Ooze and... Oh, no, I transfigured it. Anyway, we are going to go to combat. This is going to give all minions +1/+1. Crick is a minion. So we go to combat, we swing for 5 damage, and we gain 5 life. Just something you might want to do. Okay, now we're going to pay black, black, black to exile Belthor. We're just going to use Crick's ability, pay 6 life to exile this, to return our creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield. And in this instance, we've got 3 of them. Okay, now what are we going to do? Well, now we're going to use Fleshwrither again. He's back in play, so we can use him again. Let's tap a mana. We're going to pay black, black with Crick's ability, and we are going to transfigure into Vile Entomber. When Vile Entomber enters the play, you get to entomb a creature. So we can go through our graveyard, find a thing, and put it in the graveyard. There's 2 ways we can go here. We can put Razakath in the graveyard, or we can get either Gray Merchant or Chainer. But let's just stick with the Razakath thing now. The reason that usually you're going to do Razakath, the reason that the other line is kind of open to us is because Dimir Houseguard actually is a sacrifice outlet, and to do the Chainer and Gray Merchant, you need a sacrifice outlet. So we wouldn't necessarily need to go with the main combo here, but let's just stick to what we wanted to stick to. We're going to entomb Razakath. So that goes into the graveyard. Razakath has the ability pay 2 life and sacrifice another creature to search your library for a card and put it in your hand. So 2 life, sack a creature, tutor. And that is in our graveyard, which means Necrotic Ooze can use that ability. So now we are going to sacrifice a creature to tutor something up. Sacrifice a creature, and we're going to tutor up. Oh, let's go with Asmodeus. Alright, so Asmodeus is in hand, and now we are going to utilize that ability again. We're going to sacrifice our Dimir Houseguard to tutor again with the Razakath ability. And the next tutor target is going to be, we've got our Asmodeus, so what else do we need? We need our Scourge Familiar. Jeez. That goes into our hand. Okay. Now, the last tutor, this is my own little line I came up with, because we don't have Lion's Eye Diamond in this deck because it's a budget deck. So I figured we could do the same kind of thing with Collective Brutality. So in the fully budgetless list, when they get to this point, their last tutor is going to be searching for Lion's Eye Diamond, and then they're going to play their Lion's Eye Diamond. They're going to crack the Lion's Eye Diamond, which is going to put these creatures in the bin where we need them to be. So instead, we are going to sacrifice our last creature, which will be Crick, to find, so we get 1 more tutor, and it's going to be Collective Brutality. There's lots of ways to do this exactly, but this is like the cornerstone, the main thing. This is the main, just get your head around this. Watch this part of the video over and over until you understand it, and you basically understand the deck. There's lots of iterations, lots of different, well, let's stay on track, sorry. So now, we are going to cast Collective Brutality. And what Collective Brutality does is it gives us 3 options. Target opponent reveals their hand and we pluck a spell from it is option 1. It's like a duress. Option 2 is target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. And then the third option is target opponent loses 2 life and we gain 2 life, which actually can be a thing. Sometimes that comes up, sometimes it matters because you're running that close. You're on a real thin margin as to whether you have enough life to finish the game or not. But really the reason we want this is for the duress mode and for the escalate. So we have this ability on this card, Escalate, that allows us to discard a card to get an additional mode. So if we cast it and we don't discard a card, we just choose a mode. But if we discard 2 cards, then we get all 3 modes. So that's pretty good. What are we going to discard? We're going to use the Escalate ability, and we're going to discard Scourge Familiar and Asmodeus, which that's what we wanted to accomplish all along. The whole idea, like the whole goal of the deck, think of it like this. The goal of our deck primarily is to get Necrotic Ooze into play with these 2 creatures in the graveyard. That's it. You can bury it alive for all 3 of them and then animate this. You can somehow bend these 2 1 card at a time and then play this. Sometimes you'll run your Scourge Familiar out and actually cast it and put this in the bin. But Asmodeus has to be in the graveyard, and Scourge Familiar probably ought to be in the graveyard. Scourge Familiar has this ability that we can discard a card to add 1 black mana to our mana pool. So we could discard, say, 3 cards for 3 black mana. Asmodeus has the ability black, 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 draw 7 cards. So do you see where this is going? Now, Asmodeus has this other negative ability, but we're not worried about that because the Necrotic Ooze only gets the activated abilities. It doesn't get their weird little drawbacks. So we don't have to do any of this binding contract first line of text stuff. We just have black, 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 draw 7 cards. That's what the text that we're worried about is. Black, 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 draw 7 cards. Okay, so these are in our graveyard. We discarded them by paying the Escalade card and just escalating it twice. Now we're going to go black. We're discarding a black with Necrotic Ooze using Scourge Familiar's ability. Or we're discarding another card and another card, so that's 3 cards. We have 3 black mana floating. Now we're going to use the Asmodeus ability to pay black, 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 and draw 7 cards. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What that is. Alright. So now we're going to discard 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to draw 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to discard 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to draw 7 cards. So you're just going to keep doing this until you have a ton of cards in your hand, where you've got like the bulk of your deck in your hand, like more than half of your deck in your hand. Then you're going to discard all of those cards for mana. Well, you're going to hold on to a couple cards. There's a couple things you have to hold on to. First of all, we'll just discard a card to run out our Elixir of Immortality. This is a key card in this combo. The other thing we need to do is make sure we hold on to a tutor that would find Buried Alive, or a way to entomb a creature, or Buried Alive itself. So here we're just going to discard all of these cards for mana. And maybe you'd use a Duress on somebody or what have you. You just need to make sure when you're discarding all this stuff that you hold on to a tutor that can find your Buried Alive. So we're getting a mana for each one of these cards. So we have however many mana, like 20 mana. So each one of those is a mana. Okay, now we have 30 cards in our graveyard. Most of them we discarded for mana. We are going to pay 2 of that mana to shuffle this and our graveyard back into our library. And we can do that again, and again, and again. Now the reason that we have to do it this time is because our Tendrils of Agony is in the graveyard. So we do need to make sure we get the Tendrils. So let's just, is there a way to move all of this into the library? Okay, we move it all into the library, and we shuffle. Okay, and we would have technically wanted to put a draw 7 cards, probably a draw 7 cards trigger on the stack in response to shuffling all of that in. It doesn't really matter. we have this. And we are going to use this and our billion mana to, we're going to cast Buried Alive, and we're going to put 3 cards in our graveyard, and they are going to be Scourge Familiar, and Asmodeus. I know that's not 3. I can count to 3. We don't care about the rest of it. We just need these 2 in the bin. And now we've got our Necrotic Ooze. We're going to, we have, who knows, 25 mana floating. We pay 3 mana to draw 7 cards. We discard 3 of them, or we just use another 3, draw 7 cards. Discard or pay however much mana, and draw 7 cards. Basically, for every 3 cards we discard, we get 7 cards drawn, which nets us 4 cards, which is basically netting us 4 mana. 4 mana or 4 cards. So we're just going to keep doing this, discarding a bunch of stuff. Eventually, we're going to discard a bunch of creatures, and then our Song of the Damned is going to be even more mana. But we're effectively infinite mana. Because we're just going to keep drawing and discarding and drawing and discarding. Discard, 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 oops, and draw 7 cards. Okay, then we hit our Tendrils of Agony, and we pay 4 mana to cast this, and it has Storm, so it's going to, for every spell that we've cast this turn, somebody's going to take 2 damage, and we're going to gain 2 life. Then this goes into the graveyard, and then we just discard all of our cards and draw all the cards until we find Elixir of Immortality again. And once we find Elixir of Immortality again, we discard all the cards for mana, and we crack the Elixir of Immortality. You can hold priority and pay 3 black mana to put a draw 7 on the stack, so that after you shuffle, you draw 7 cards. But it doesn't really matter. Again, as long as you hold on to a tutor like this, you can discard everything else. Discard it all. Get all the mana in your mana pool. Cast your Dark Ritual. And it's not going to matter as long as you have a tutor, so that you can find your Buried Alive after you shuffle everything together. So we get to the point where we find our Elixir of Immortality. When we find our Elixir of Immortality, then we shuffle everything back in. We kept an activation of the draw 7 on the stack, so we can draw 7 just one more time. We played out our Wish Claw, so we're going to tap the Wish Claw Talisman to find Buried Alive, and we are going to cast Buried Alive with some of our many excess mana, and we're going to put Asmodeus and Scourge Familiar back into the graveyard. And it doesn't have to necessarily be Buried Alive. Actually, you could just keep drawing until you find, like, eventually when you have enough mana, you can just entomb the Asmodeus and just cast the Scourge Familiar. That works too. You need the Asmodeus in the graveyard because you need to not have its negative ability. So that's pretty much the loop. That's the one that I was asked about the most. That's how it works. The other kind of main win con is going to be a little bit different, involving different pieces, different cards. I don't know if we want to run through this again. I guess we don't need to run through this again. You can rewind it, right? Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay. Now let's take maybe we do like a couple legit practice hands. What I'd like to do is I'd like to find the other line. The other line is basically going to be like this. Let's restart to see if we get lucky. Not really. Yeah, no, it's fine. This is a good thing. This is fine. I think this would be actually a really good starting hand. But I don't know which way we'd want to go with this, really, in game. I think probably we'd end up just doing the same thing we just did. you know, which is great, which is fine, right? Or we could just cast Entomb and cast Necromancy and bring out the demon, you know. We'd probably want to wait until we drew a couple creatures and put a couple creatures in play, and then we could draw the demon and go for the secondary win condition. Let's see what our first couple draws were. Oh, speak of the devil. Almost literally the devil. So let's say we had bend this guy with Entomb, and then we had cast this on this. So this is a real good, easy way, assuming you have some creatures in play, to search out the pieces that you need to finish the game off. But yeah, I think I'm just going to show kind of the other main combo. Let's just dig the pieces out. Just to keep things not cluttered, let's just get rid of all the cards here. Can't we just... No. Alright, so what we need for the second big combo is we need Chainer, we need Chainer. Oops. We need Gray Merchant. And we need a way to sacrifice them. So that can be Razakath, or it can be Dimir Houseguard. Okay, so this is the other main combo right here. We've got our commander in play, and we could have Necrotic Ooze out and have these other cards in the graveyard. That's fine too. Or we could just have these in play. So we can have these two cards in play, however many lands, but this can basically be our board state. We can tap 3 lands and pay 4 life to cast Gray Merchant of Asphodel. He counts your devotion to black, and he deals that much damage to each opponent, and you gain life equal to the amount of damage you dealt in total. So if you just have all these things in play, again, remember, you could have Chainer in your graveyard, and you could have Dimir Houseguard in your graveyard, as long as you have Noose, as long as you have Necrotic Ooze in play, it'll have the abilities of both of these creatures. So that's why a lot of times what you'll do is this can be your Buried Alive pile. You can cast Buried Alive and put these 3 creatures in your graveyard, and then you can cast your Necrotic Ooze and win the game. But again, for simplicity, or just to kind of show another look at it, let's just say we actually manually assembled these pieces, or we had some creatures out and we sacrificed creatures to tutor all these pieces with Razakath. I say all these pieces, really it's not that many pieces, and it can be as many as exactly Buried Alive and any reanimate effect. But I digress. So we've got this guy in the hand. We've got mana and life points left to cast him. So we do cast him, and that deals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm counting the devotion to black. Our devotion to black is 8. So that's going to deal 8 damage to each of 3 opponents. So they each take 8, and we're going to gain 24 life. Okay. Then we're going to use the Dimir Houseguard just as a sacrifice outlet. We're going to sacrifice Gray Merchant. That goes to the graveyard. Now we're going to use Chainer's ability, which is black, 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 and pay 3 life. So with Crick, that actually just means pay 9 life. We can pay for all 3 black pips with 2 life apiece, and then pay the 3 life. So that costs a total of 9 life. So we are just going to pay that 9 life to put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's black in addition to its other types. Okay. So we are going to reanimate Gray Merchant by paying 9 life. When Gray Merchant enters the battlefield, it is going to drain everybody again for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we drain everybody for 8. We gain 24 life. We sacrifice this to the Dimir House Guard. We pay 9 life to recur it again with Chainer, and we blast everybody again. And so we are going up 24 life every time we do this, and it's only costing us 9 life to do it. So that's why this combo works. I think that's probably beyond the, oh, right there at the 30-minute mark. Perfect. Or close enough. So let's call it. I think that's plenty for you to chew on. And if you have specific questions, leave them in the comments. Maybe we should go through some starting hands and see which ones are good and not. Maybe not. We want, like if this had another land in it, this would be great. A little bit of interaction, fast mana, well, mana ramp, not fast mana. A little bit of mana ramp, and a card like Lively Dirge can also act as a 1-card win con a lot of the time. Because if we have enough mana and or Crick with enough life, then we can spree this. And we can search our library for a creature card, put it in the graveyard. That creature card is going to be Fleshwrither. We put Fleshwrither in, and we animate it. So we've put it into play. So since Fleshwrither is a 1-card win condition, like we saw in the first example, that means Lively Dirge is also a 1-card win condition, in a way, in a manner, right? It takes a little bit of setup. You're going to need to have a couple creatures in play. You're going to need to have some lands out. But, I mean, you always need something to win the game, right? It's stuff you want to be doing anyway, though. This 1-card combo is not asking you to play any weird cards. You just play the stuff you already wanted to play. Drop creatures, put creatures in play. And like I said, I think if you wanted to fully tune this deck, I think I'd go up about 1 mana rock, and I'd go up about 1 little creature. Not sure what rock, not sure what creature, and just cut a couple of the interaction pieces. I think that would be a net benefit. I think we've got the right number of lands, and I think we're close on everything else, but if there's a problem that I'm encountering, it's that I'm having to pass the turn a lot because I don't have enough creatures to sack to pull off my combo. If there is a second problem, it's because I'm like 1 colorless pip short, like a colorless mana short of being able to fire the full combo off all at once. And so I have to pass the turn. And so if we had like more mana rocks, especially if we had better mana rocks available to us, but we don't. We're a budget deck. If we had more creatures, and I think also Springleaf Drum gets a lot better. It's a really good piece if you have a lot of creatures, and we've got a lot of creatures, but we're going to be sacrificing them too. So I try to get another creature and another rock in. Well, I don't know. It's just it's a starting point, and I hope you brew the deck, and I hope you put a lot more love into the deck than I put into this deck. I put some love into the budgetless version, and I've been putting a little bit of love into this version, but I think it's a really good starting point, and I'd love to see your takes on it. If that goes for any of the decks that I bring you, if anybody has built my decks and modified them to their own taste or to their own meta, had their own ideas about them, I mean, please, by all means, please send me the Moxfield. Send me and it has to be Moxfield, because if it's Architect or one of those other things, my brain can't do it, guys. I just literally think in Moxfield, even when I'm like, I can be shopping for shoes, and I look at them and it appears to be a Moxfield pattern. So Architect or one of the other ones, I don't even know what they're called, isn't going to work. It's got to be Mox. But please send me your version of my lists in Moxfield. I'd love to take a look at them. I think that's going to do it. Peace be with you and also with you. Word to your mothers, word to your fathers. East side till I die, unless I die on the west side, in which case east side until I die on the west side. Word to your mothers, namaste, bitches.